Hello and welcome back. This is an Algebra 1 video where we're going to be reviewing how to solve multi-step equations that involve some simplifying before we solve. Okay, here is the first one I'm going to solve for. We're going to take the equation 7v minus 6v equals 9, and we're going to solve for v to find out what v is. So before we do this, we see an opportunity here to simplify this equation. What I see is that there are some like terms on the same side of the equation. They're both on the left side. We have two terms that have v in them. So what I can do is combine those like terms before I start to solve. So a like term is considered to be any term that has the same variable to the same power. So like an x and an x. But if one of these x's was x squared and the other one was not, we could not combine that together. So it has to be the same variable to the same power. And that's what we have here. We have 7v and 6v. So I'm going to go ahead and perform this operation and combine these like terms before I solve. That'll make solving a little bit easier. So if I have 7 v's and I take 6 of those v's away, I'm left with just one v on this side equals 9. Now this actually solved it for me. Since we're just solving for v and all we have is one v left on the left, v equals 9 in this case. Okay, here is our next one. We're going to take the equation 19k minus 11k plus 16 equals negative 16, and we're going to solve for k. So what I see here is another opportunity to combine some like terms. I see 19k and 11k that I can combine together before I start to solve. So if I had 19k's and I took 11 of them away, I would be left with, I believe, 8k's. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that as 8k plus 16 equals negative 16. Okay, so now my next step is to put that line in between the equal sign and start moving things away from the k. So I'm ready to go ahead and start solving. The opposite of adding 16 would be to subtract 16. So I'm going to subtract 16 from both sides here. That will get this 16 away from the k because that will cancel out to 0. A positive 16 minus 16 is 0. On this side, I have negative 16 minus 16, which equals negative 32. So I'm going to go ahead and write that here. I'm going to bring down the 8k because I haven't done anything with that yet and leave that right here. Now I need to get the 8 away from the k, so I know what k is equal to. Right now, k is being multiplied by 8, and the opposite of multiplying something by 8 is to divide it by 8. So I'm going to divide both sides by 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1, and 1 times k is just k, so we're going to call those canceled. K equals, on the other side, negative 32 divided by 8 is negative 4. So the final solution here would be that k is equal to negative 4. Okay, here is our next one. We have negative 3 times the expression set z minus 17 equals 0. So this one is a little bit different than the previous two. I don't see any like terms I can combine, but I do see a negative 3 outside parentheses, which means I need to use the distribution property to go ahead and simplify this equation. So what that means is I need to do 3 times z, or sorry, negative 3 times z, and negative 3 times negative 17. We're going to go ahead and take this minus sign in front of the 17 to make that negative 17, because subtracting 17 is the same as adding a negative 17. So we're going to go ahead and do negative 3 times z, which is negative 3z. Now, a negative 3 times a negative 17 will give us a positive answer, because two negatives multiplied give us a positive, and that would end up being positive 51. So I'm going to add 51 to both sides. That's going to be equal to 0. Okay, so that is what we're going to end up with over on that side. Okay, let's keep going here. Now that we've distributed, what we need to do is subtract 51 from both sides so that we can get it away from that z. This cancels out to be 0. 0 minus 51 is negative 51. And I'm going to bring down that 3z, or sorry, negative 3z right there, because I haven't done anything with that yet. Now, the opposite of multiplying something by negative 3 is to divide it by negative 3. So I'm going to divide this by negative 3 and this by negative 3. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1, so that's going to cancel out to just z. And negative 51 divided by negative 3 gives us a positive 17. So that is going to be the answer to this equation. Z equals negative 17. Or sorry, not negative 17, positive 17. Okay, here is our next one. We're going to take this equation and solve for y. Negative 2 times the expression y minus 3 equals negative 10. Now, again, we don't have any like terms to combine before we solve for this, but we do have some distribution property. We have a negative 2 outside an expression inside parentheses. So in the last one, or the last example, you saw me do the distribution property, which is to multiply this times this and this. That will work to simplify the equation. However, there is another way to do it. You can start by doing the opposite of multiplying that expression by negative 2, and that is to divide it by negative 2. But you have to do it to both sides. So divide this by negative 2 and this by negative 2. Now, negative 2 times something, then divided by negative 2, leads you right back to that something. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel those out. That leaves us with y minus 3 over here. And then on the other side, negative 10 divided by negative 2 is 5. Okay, so that's a way you can do it when you have distribution property, and that's all you have left on the one side is distribution property. However, if this number, or whatever it's equal to, is not divisible by this number, then I don't recommend doing this, because that's just going to lead you to fractions and decimals, and that's going to be a lot more calculating to do. So the only reason I did this is because I knew that negative 10 divided by negative 2 would give me a whole number. If that's not the case, then using the distribution property will work. So now I'm going to go ahead and keep solving. I need to move that minus 3 to the other side. So the opposite would be to add 3 to both sides. These numbers cancel out. So I'm left with y on this side and 5 plus 3, which is 8. So the solution to this would be that y is equal to 8. Okay, here's our last equation for today's video. We're going to take 13q minus 9q plus 5 equals 17 and use it to solve for q. Okay, so I'm going to start with these like terms that I see that are already on the same side of the equation. That would be the 13q minus the 9q. If I had 13 q's and I took away 9 of them, that would leave me with 4 q's. So I'm going to rewrite that as 4q plus 5 equals 17. Okay, let me double check my math on that because I'm not great at subtracting from the top of my head. Nope, that's it. Yep, 4q plus 5 equals 17. Okay, so now I need to move things away from the q and to the other side of the equation. So I'm going to do the opposite of adding 5, which is to subtract 5. So I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. These 5s cancel out to 0. I'm going to bring down that 4q, put it right here. And then 17 minus 5 is 12. So this is where I am after this last step. Now, if I take q and I multiply it by 4, the opposite of that would be to divide it by 4. So I'm going to divide both sides by 4 so that the q, or the 4, moves away from the q. 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 1 times q is just q, so we're going to cancel those. Q equals, and then 12 divided by 4 is 3. So the final solution here would be q is equal to 3. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you in another video very soon.